Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are live right now in the Cannabis community. So, shout out to everyone who's watching us live right now on Cannabis. We really appreciate you all joining us over there. Today, we have a great episode for you. We are interviewing Michigan Matt. He's right up there. He's with his company Waverly. They're out in Michigan growing a bunch of dank weed, and we're going to be talking about everything that comes with that, whether it's the farm and what he's doing in the grow, and then what it's like being a cannabis business out in Michigan right now at the end of 2022. But before we get too far into it, I have a couple business matters to handle. First, I want to shout out our sponsor, Tiki Madman. Tiki Madman is a sponsor of the show, and he really helped us out. So we need to thank him, and you can help us by thanking him by going to tikimadman.com and grabbing yourself some genetics. Tiki is breeding with some of the latest and greatest strains out there, all kinds of different flavors. He's always dropping something new. So if you need something, go check out tikimadman.com for some seeds. And then lastly, Cannabis, our community, is now a members only community. So that means that you can join our community and subscribe to us. And that is a great way of supporting this show and supporting the community. So use the code New Year, all one word, for 50% off, and we would really appreciate your support. And shout out to everyone over in the cannabis community. So, off the top, we're gonna give you a little bit of background on Michigan Matt. Michigan Matt is an original DGC member. That's a Dude Grows crew. If you're not in the know, he's a original DGC, and he comes from the medical caregiver days over in Michigan. And we are super excited to have him on. You may have seen him on Canna Cribs, which I didn't know that you had a Canna Cribs episode, so that's pretty awesome. We are super excited to have Michigan Matt on the show. Welcome, Matt.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me.
What's up, Matt? Glad to have you here. Stoked that you could be with us tonight.
Yeah, it's a little bit later on the East Coast over here, but I got an extra shot of espresso in me tonight, so let's see what we can do.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, I mean, we might as well get into it. Go ahead and tell us how you kind of got started in the cannabis space and what's kind of led you up to this kind of point in time.
So the cannabis space in general happened in high school, obviously, I think for most of us, and for some of us, our older crowd, we can remember the brickweed that used to come in. For the younger crowd, it's funny, the more and more you ask these younger guys if they've ever seen the brickweed, they would they've never seen it, so it's like nostalgia for them. It's kind of interesting. But when I first had my first introduction to chronic weed, that was really my eye-opening experience to what cannabis really could be like and be for. And 2009 is when Michigan went medically legal, and that's kind of around the time when I decided to grow. And I wanted to grow like the good chronic that I've been finding, because I was tired of paying $400 ounces. And I honestly, for the first 3 years of growing, I didn't even smoke my own. Like, I traded to get better than I had because I was so picky that my own wasn't even that great. And then slowly but surely kind of brought me to where I am today.
So when you started out, did you like start out in at home in the crib, or how did your first grow, kind of your first medical grow, and what were you allowed to grow with a medical license or with a medical
Yeah.
permit?
So back then, and honestly, still you can do it now. The caregiver model is one, or you can grow 12 plants for yourself, but then you can also have up to 5 patients. And for each of the 5 patients, you can have 12 plants as well. So you can have up to 72 plants. And that was like, you can still do that now, I'm pretty sure. I don't think they've taken that away yet anyways. But like for 2009 to 2018, before there was licensing and act, that's really the only laws that they had was the caregiver model. So my start was in a little 12 by 16 shed in my backyard. I had a little 2-lighter with some the 8-inch Raptors, big old reflectors with the ballast on the walls that used to cause interference in your phone signal. And
Yeah, I've had those guys show up before.
yeah. So I was doing that, and I was growing just one cycle and harvesting. I tried to build a little veg room out of it, but honestly, at that point in my life, I had never even grown a plant. So this was like all kind of new to me. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I was completely relying on the grow store guy that kind of helped me
Yeah.
learn my ways and learn how to grow. But uh, one big thing that I've learned over the last 13 years is trial and error. And like the more experience you can have and the more times you can fail, the better
Yeah.
grower and the better just really, you can say this in life in general, the better type of experiences you can have.
I would definitely say that consistency is something that takes a while to get into a stride. You know what I mean?
No doubt, yeah. Consistency, because there's like so many different components that consist of consistency, right? Like the whole pie is has to be consistent, and that whole pie has all these little subdivisions, and each subdivision has to be consistent in its own right, and each subdivision of that has to be consistent in its own right in order for those components to be working properly. So like you can like break that down so far into so many different pieces, and uh you can really um start getting intricate about it.
Excellent. Well, we're going to touch on some of that stuff as well here coming up. But just in general, tell us about how Waverly came about.
So Waverly, after I left my last place of employment, I was actually introduced to the partners that I'm with now by a good grower friend of mine, and I was fortunate to meet the guys that I did, and they were fortunate enough to have enough foresight in me and trust in what I had done up to this point, being coming from some of the commercial spots that I was in before this. That they decided to invest in me. And when they invested in me, I knew I had a plan. I had a plan in place. I knew how to execute the plan. I just can't do everything myself. And I didn't have the financial means to actually get it done. So Waverly kind of came about with just some guys that they had a facility and they were being led astray by a wrong dude. And he was doing a couple other things that didn't really equate to proper business when you're like looking at state licensing. So he was let go from his position, and that's where I kind of came in and took over. And they already had the building and they had some of the layout kind of already put down, but there was a lot of little intricate details that had to be ironed out over the next year. It was a little over a year before we actually got the license going.
So from the time that you kind of started on to the time that you actually flipped the light on the first plant, how much time were you talking there?
13 months.
13 months. So that's
Yeah.
a 13-month commitment that you had to make to build something just to get ready to rock.
Just to get ready to rock. And the other thing about that was like end of 21 into this year. So, I mean, we're talking supply chain issues. We're talking labor shortages. We're talking all sorts of things that you see, and then you have to play project manager at that point, right? You have to get guys in the right places at the right times and tell them how you need things done a certain way at a certain time in order to equate to get the other guy there to get his job done at a certain time. And that's when I just keep looking at everybody. I'm like, hey, I'm not a project manager. I am a grower. Put a plant in front of me and get the hell out of my way.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it, I imagine.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you put on just a new variety of hats. I mean, as growers, I think we all know you have to wear a lot of different hats, right? Like, especially if you're coming from prohibition days or you're coming from days that you were scared about fleas. Because if your air conditioner came down, unless you knew somebody that was really good at air conditioning, you're having to fix that thing yourself. And you learn a lot. And you learn a lot about plumbing and electrical and mechanical and all these different things. So you wear all these different hats, but then you start wearing new hats, and those other hats that you were wearing become bigger hats, and they start all kind of falling off at the same time because your head can only hold so many hats at once. So
yeah, excellent. So with the new rec type of license facility, do they give you square footage to grow? Do they give you plant counts? How does that work?
We are on a plant count basis. So there's A, B's, and C's licenses, at least for the grow. Like there's different license types. There's dispensary license, they call them
Sure.
provision centers. But as far as the grow is concerned, there's A, B, and C licenses, and then there's micro licenses. But the regular A, B, and C's, I think they're like 500, 1,000, and 2,000 plants. So, and we're a Class C facility, so we have we have Class C in both medical and adult use. So we could technically have 4,000 plants, but we're never even coming close to one of those licenses.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, 4,000 plants is a lot to facilitate and a lot to dry and cure properly.
Well, it's all scale. So, kind of, we can kind of go backwards a little bit here. And so for my little 2-liter that I had in my backyard, my shed, I went to a 40-liter and ran that as a caregiver for 4 years by myself. And, I always have a couple friends maybe come in and out once in a while to help trim, but everything else was done by me. So that was a big scale up from where I was to where I'm at. And then learning how to manage that. And then again, doing everything myself, trying to be quiet about it, because there's a lot of gray areas still in that law. So I didn't want to cross any boundaries, although boundaries were always crossed. But it just helps you with scale, because everything is scalable. So once you kind of get a system in place, then you can kind of start multiplying it out. And we can kind of get into that too as we start talking a little bit more about Waverly and some other stuff that's going on. But it's amazing how, if you have consistent data built, how you can use that data to your advantage and understand what numbers look like before they're even there, if that makes sense. Like going from wet weight to dry weight.
Well, could you talk about, I'd love to hear you talk about a little bit about what you learned, maybe some few top lessons you've learned that took you from that small grow to these big grows. Because anytime you change up your grow situation, there's new problems and things that arise. And so I'm sure you learned a ton going from 2 lights to 40 and then 40 to what you have now. Do you have a couple of things that you could share? Because I'm sure there's so many viewers of ours that would love to scale up, but around those corners, there's a lot of challenges, I'm sure.
Most definitely. It's a great question. And we could spend all day talking about probably little things that could add up to that. But first things that comes to mind when you were talking was patience. Learning patience and having patience and understanding that some things are out of your hand and out of control. We can definitely get into my day today, how we're in the dry room and trimming today and the air conditioner stops working. And now you can't get the part till tomorrow. So now I don't have any air conditioning running, and I got trimmers in there breathing. So it's getting warmer. I mean, I still have circulation going, but the actual compressor itself wasn't working. So we can talk about those types of challenges, but you have to also learn that some things are out of your control and out of your hands. Like microbial testing is a very huge thing. And we're going to get into testing, I think, a little bit later, but yeah, microbial testing is one of those things where it's one of those things that's kind of just out of your hands. And so if you can learn that patience and to take things in stride and take things almost day by day, I think you can really learn from each day. And that's that's like the biggest thing about scalability is, and like kind of taking that next step is being patient, understanding that you're going to have challenges and being ready for those challenges when they arise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I mean, I think anyone who's even started growing from even at the most simplest level understands that it's all about problem solving.
Yeah.
Because in order to get a product, like you said, that you want to put in your bowl and smoke, there's a lot of variables that have to be figured out in order for that product to come out in a way that you want it to come out.
I don't want to sound pretentious, or I don't want to sound, or maybe I should even knock on wood at this point, from what I'm about to say, but the plants are the easy thing at this point. Like the plants, like if you have your systems in place and you have your procedures in place, the plants are the easy thing. Like that's the least of my concern. My concern right now are roof leaks, are snowstorms, are power outages, are all these other details that allow the plants. So there's a term that I really want to coin, and somebody steals it from me because it's the first time I've said it public, then so be it. But you can't grow a healthy plant without a healthy room. And like to have a healthy
Yeah.
room is like there's so many different pieces of that system. Like that's the whole system in itself is just the room itself, right? Because you have all the
Yeah.
different components that go into it, from dehumidifiers to humidifiers to lights to ceilings to tables and to pots and whatever else is in that room, right? There's so many different little intricate details that if one goes out of place or one's out of whack, then the whole system's out of whack, right?
Yeah.
Dehumidifiers go down, then your humidifiers are over humidifying, or
Yeah.
you're getting too much. Or if your humidifier goes down, then all of a sudden you can't keep up with your humidity. Or if your air conditioner goes down, or it's all these separate components that if one plays an effect, it has an effect on the whole picture. So having the healthy room to begin with, the plants, like I said, it just makes the plants the easy part.
Well, let's get into Waverly and start talking about how some of these things go down.
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Let's start off with, do you bring in cuts? And if you do bring in cuts, what is your quarantine and IPM process?
So, okay, so I'm going to be very transparent, and that's the type of person I am. I'll try to be as transparent as possible. I have no reason to hide anything or to be ashamed for anything that I do. I know that, and again, I'm not trying to like be ego here, but I know what I do works, and like seeing my data go from one facility to another and still translate almost to the T, it gives me a lot of different types of confidences. So I guess where I'm going with that is that I'm also not a perfect grower, and I only have so much time in a day, and I don't have all the room that I would love to have. So yes, I have taken in cuts, and no, I have not quarantined them. And there's a couple different, I don't want to say reasons for that. That's the wrong things. But there's a couple of comments that I'd like to make on that. One of the cuts that came in took second place in the GGC Cup. So the guy that I think grew that one usually has pretty quality background, and obviously JR is that person. The other person that I have sourced some clones from is a reputable breeder that I trust. So I don't think that he would be putting anything in my garden that I'd be too concerned about. And the last guy that I have been working with, he has an extreme amount of data and testing that goes into his genetics and his cuts before he sends them out. And he has all the proofs and COAs with them. So that kind of gives me a little bit more security. That being said, that only plays a little part in the entire picture, because the other part of the picture is understanding that I have a very trained eye to know what to look for. Like I can see a plant from a mile away, and I know if that plant's not green, there's a reason that plant's not green. And what is that reason, right? So we can spot, like, especially if you stare at plants all day, every day, you can spot all these little deficiencies, and spotting those deficiencies will help you. I'm not perfect, and I have done some things that could jeopardize gardens. I'm not saying right now, but just over my career. And I've learned from those mistakes and just try to navigate those waters as best as possible.
And I think now that nurseries are able to do tissue culturing and offer certifications and, lab results from their cuts and stuff, I think it's going to build even more confidence in the cut market.
And then if you have somebody that has built credibility too, like that's another thing. Like, I'm sorry, if you put a cut out there that spreads HLBD or spreads something else that comes in the future, like you're losing your credibility. But if you're doing things right and you have good SOPs and you have things that are black and white and laid out proper, and then you have continued success with those people, then you might as well keep going back to them. I mean, nobody's perfect. Things can happen. Things can happen to anybody's garden. The best thing for IPM or about IPM is about preventative care and preventive maintenance. So the best thing we can do is prevent. As long as we can keep preventing, then we can kind of stay out ahead of it. But again, I'm not perfect either. There's only so much time in a day. There's only so much time in a week.
So you are currently prepping a mother and clone area?
Yes, we have a mother and clone area. Yeah, we grow some larger moms where I can get about 70 cuts off a mom with no issues.
And then for cloning, you're doing clone domes and
Yep, root rights.
root rats.
Yep.
Right.
With
And
a
that's just space saving, right? And ease of use.
yeah, so both. Yes, I haven't really thought about the space saving because I can definitely just throw some clones on the shelves, and I don't really use lighting for my clones. I just put them in veg, and I use whatever light is in the area. So ambient light, for instance, I usually tuck my clones in the corner, and whatever ambient light kind of hits it is good. I mean, we can get right down into it. I don't care. Like everything I discussed this with you earlier, JR. Everything that I have learned has been through DGC, has been through trial and error. There's nothing that I've learned that's a secret. So I'm not going to sit here and say like my SOPs are like all secretive. Like don't tell anybody that I'm doing this.
Right.
Like I'll tell you right now, when I clone with root riots. I clone in a mixture of 2 mils CalMag, 10 mils CloneX, and 2 mils of, for me it's Rizzo because I use a Canna. For other people, it might be like 1 mil of heavy 16 roots, or what might be 1 mil of Mills start or whatever. And then I soak that overnight. I put the cubes in the room so that it's soaked up overnight. So it gets room temperature. Then I transplant my clones into them the next day. I let them sit in the domes for 4 days before I pop the lids. Then I pop the lids and start checking them to see the moisture content that's left within the cube itself. Then I wipe down the insides of the domes and then do that every single day from then forward. Typically, well, the fastest I've ever seen roots is 5 days. And I did that, or we did that with a clone run like 2 runs ago. I'd never seen a root in 5 days. That was the first time I'd ever see that. 6 days is usually like one tiny little root will be coming out. And by day 7, see some consistencies.
Nice. And so your room is usually around what humidity and temperature?
Warmer and higher humidities. So I like to run a lower VPD, right? So if I'd rather like almost talk in VPD terms, we're looking at like a 0.7 to 0.9 range of VPD just because of the way that the equipment swings within the facility. So we're looking at like 84 degrees ish, give or take 1 or 2 degrees, or like plus or minus, and then we're looking like 70 to 72% humidity or so.
Nice. And now in Michigan, it gets cold and dry there. Is it dry in the winter?
It's actually a common misconception. It's actually not as dry in the winter as people think. It is dry in the winter in general, but if you check the humidity, it was like 60% humidity the other day when it was snowing. So it's like humidity is still there, but the cold makes it drier. I don't know how it works. I'm not a meteorologist or a weather person, but maybe it's the heat in the houses that are bringing down or making things more dry in houses. That's why you'll see like 20-30% in a house because you have heat kicking all the time and making it dry. As far as the grow room is concerned, it really, for me, it doesn't matter what the weather is outside as long as I can do what I have to do inside. But to do that, you have to invest in the right equipment. One of my favorite pieces of equipment in our facilities are humidifier. Our humidifier is done by CoolFog, and it's basically, especially West Coast guys or you guys from the South will know, you go to the bars like in the middle of the summer and they have patio seating, but they have the little cool misting that kind of happens, or you could like relate it to your produce section, right? That comes down and mists the produce every once in a while. That's what we have within our facility. That like humidifiers, some of the Ideal Air, ultrasonics, those are like $1,000 or something like that. This one was like 18 grand just for I don't think I ever mentioned we're 100 flower or 248 light flowering rooms and a 60 light veg. So we're 160 light operation basically. But that piece of equipment, like not only does it humidify the room, but it's also cooling the room, right? Because it's coming in at whatever the RO temperature is. So the RO temperature is at 68, and it's coming in at 68 degrees, and it's actually cooling. We had just one air conditioner working in one of our flowering rooms when we first started up, and it was a 10-ton unit for 48 lights, but we were maintaining temperatures, and we were like scratching our heads, like we know these other 2 units aren't working. How are we maintaining temperatures for 48,000 watts? It didn't add up. It didn't make sense. So we grabbed a PPFD meter to make sure that our lights were working, and they were all powered to 1,000. Like we could tell by roughly 1,000 to 1,100 at canopy. And so we knew that everything was right. So the only thing we can contribute it to was the fact that that cool fog was misting the plants and misting the room as it goes. And we take very close look at leaf surface temperature. So I've always got a temp gun in my hand and looking at leaf surface temperature. Room temperature means nothing to me. It's all about what the plants are feeling.
Yeah.
And with like the leaf surface temperature still at like 78 to 82, like with only 10 tons running on 48 lights, like I was like, oh, this thing is amazing. So you're saving energy costs too.
That's huge. And then, you know, for a lot of people, I think they use a lot of their, like if they do have monitors, they don't really put them right at the canopy, and they're not hitting their, you know, like you said, the surface of the leaf with that gun to make sure they're in that sweet spot. Are you running LED in veg, or are you still, you are?
Yep.
Are you doing the 350Rs?
Yep. Absolutely
Nice.
love those lights. Those are my absolute favorite lights on the market right now.
Yeah, they put out a tremendous amount of light.
Yeah, my understanding is that you've been trying some too.
Yeah, I have.
Cherry Paloma kind of got mad at you.
Yeah, my whole bedroom, I just about pissed off everything. I had everything backed up in a Aero Cloner, thank God, but it put me back about 3 or 4 weeks. But yeah, I mean, it was a learning curve. I mean, those things put off a tremendous. I'm at less than half power on my lights, and they're just loving it.
Yeah.
I mean, my plants are loving it. They've never looked any better.
The size of the stalks that I can get at 30 days is quite amazing for a 350 watt light. And honestly, like you asked me, do I power my lights to 100%? No, I never do. Like I never get above 90. I have them at 87%, and I never go above that because it's too much. Like at 90%, I see the plant starting to stress. It's just too much for them.
Yeah, HLG just sent me their 750Rs, and it's like I'm gonna have to run them at a third power because I've got 8-foot ceilings. You know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pin them to the top and maybe run them at half if I'm lucky.
So like we're very lucky to grow up in the Grow Mouse in was it Mean Gene or Green Gene that
Green
have
Gene.
the LED talks, right?
Yeah.
And lucky to come up in like those talks and listen to those, because you learn so much about efficiency of lights, and knowing just kind of what the numbers mean on the box is like just such a step up, because knowing that those lights are performing at 3.1 micromoles per joule, which means the amount of light that the plant or the light is giving versus and that the plant's taking in versus what the draw is against the wall. Seeing the efficiency of that, then you realize that you don't need to run a 600 watt light LED in veg. Like you don't need that much light. Like you can just be efficient with it and the amount of light that you're giving it, and you can really dial back a ton. Like home grows, you want to save money on and cut your bottom lines, but it's nothing like a commercial spot, right? Commercial spots, you really have to think about every little intricate detail. And if I can cut and do my watts at 87% versus 90% or versus 100%, that's the amount of watts that I'm saving per day multiplied per year, which is going to equal amount of days of savings that I'm going to have in my power supply, right? So like another one of my things that I do is I shut my lights off 10 minutes before they are supposed to shut off. Like you go into your room at 11 hours and 50 minutes, the plants are already sleeping. Like you can see them, they're drooping. You're like, why does this look like, why did it look so bad? Are they thirsty? Are they, they're about to go to bed. So they've had their DLI for the day. So I cut my lights out 10 minutes early. And now what that does is gives me 3 days worth of savings of electricity over the course of a year. And when you add that all up over the course, that's how I lower my bottom line and still use quality ingredients to create a quality product.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to ask you about, because I've seen like with the some of the stuff that was coming across from MJ BizCon, like Advanced Nutrients was talking about having nutrients for $2 a gallon, and Athena I know is running really low numbers on their stuff. Can you kind of talk about that compared to maybe the style you like to grow in?
If you really want me to, I don't want to.
Yeah, go ahead, break it down.
I'm not gonna like say anybody's name or like put anybody any company like throw anybody down or put anybody's styles down. To each their own, and every grower has their own style and own thing that they do. And there's so many different circles of growers that you don't even realize how many different types of circles there are, and so many different
Yeah.
types of cultures of growers. And so to each their own. And if the models that are out there, I'm going to carefully choose my words, the models that are out there that some of the people are catching onto and riding trains on, are suitable for you, then you do you, and you can run your thing, and it's going to produce some really high quality flower. It's going to look really nice. It's going to give you really good weight. I'm not going to lie. And it's going to take great pictures. I don't know how it's going to smoke though. I'm not saying that you grow bad weed. I'm not saying that yours doesn't smoke good. I've tasted some very good salt-based, mineral-based grown flower, but the important thing to realize as a small grower, seeing the big growers only advertising certain brands, is a lot of these guys have deals with those companies. And when you have deals with those companies, sometimes you can't say everything that you're actually using. And if you can't say everything you're actually using, then you don't actually know everything that's going into what's making that product. So you can maybe taste some of that product that seems like, it actually tastes pretty good. And that was so-and-so that grew that with so-and-so inputs, but you don't realize they also used these other things to help achieve that goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
no, totally.
getting
So
a little bit,
I just thought, at like
no, I'll get
$2
deeper. Yeah.
at $2 a gallon, how do you actually how
So
can you afford to put
another,
out quality nutrients at $2 a gallon?
it's another trick, right? Because the other trick is X amount dollars per gallon at X amount EC, but everybody knows that when people are out there pushing different ECs than what the recipe says, then all of a sudden you're multiplying that number up.
Okay.
So there's just so many different marketing tricks that are played on the small grower, and it's not fair to all of them, but it's capitalism. It just is what it is in the long run. It's not just in the cannabis industry, it's in everything. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel over here or something. We just magnetize it because we were in the shadow for so long, and now we're in the public eye and can be exploited basically because we don't want to be arrested anymore. We don't want to go to jail. So I'm not saying that everybody's exploited or or anything like that, but I'm just saying
I'll say it.
I mean, a company's got to do what they got to do. Companies come and go as well. I know a lot of different nutrient companies that had this big hype train behind them and then all of a sudden disappeared.
Yeah.
In a lot of the salt-based companies that were like that. But kind of going back to running something like that, at least, getting out of the ego part of it. For me, when I did run some salt-based nutrients, when I buy salt-based, I mean mineral, actually mixing salts, not actually liquid bottles. Because I'm still a salt-based grower, but I use liquid bottles now. I don't use salts. Actually, there's a couple things I want to talk about there. So one thing is and I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about this, and wear masks when you're mixing up salts. Guys, wear masks. Not only that, but even once the dust is settled, it's still in the room. And if this stuff is super concentrated to be just a teaspoon a gallon to be good enough for plant use, imagine what you're sniffing up if you're mixing some of that stuff up. That's not going to be good for you. And if you want to be in the cannabis industry for a long time and you want to do this for a long time and use that type of stuff for a long time, we need to really protect ourselves. And using the proper PPE to do that type of stuff is really important. Sorry, that was a little
no, I think it's really, really important. I mean, that kind of stuff wasn't told to us back in the day when they were handing us this, that, and the other to take care of whatever problems. They didn't tell us to wear respirators. They didn't tell us to wear gloves.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't until Method 7s came around that even wearing
protecting our eyes,
glasses were even cool, and now that I'm not using HPS, I'm using LED. I haven't even figured out glasses for that yet that I like. So it's you really got
sunglasses for LED. That's all you got to do.
It seems like it because I bought LED glasses and I didn't like what I
It's
didn't
just
like it.
sunglasses. Sunglasses are
Yeah,
fine for LED rooms. But get
nice.
off my little soapbox. But so like running salt based or the salt mixed nutrients. I don't know. I'm saying the wrong word. Anyways, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like you get a
Yeah,
bag of salt and you mix it together with your water.
yeah,
I just found that that stuff is so dirty and it like cakes up in the bottom of your reservoirs and it cakes up in the bottom of your pots when you start to get runoff. And then it turns your tables white when you have to, have all the runoff throughout the course of a cycle. And you just see all that extra salt and all that extra buildup. And you're just like, this is kind of gross. And then like you run something a little cleaner. And I will call out the company that I use. I use Canna. Canna is so clean. Like you mix up a reservoir of Canna and you take the pitcher out, it looks like hydrated piss water. Like
yeah.
it's like clean. Like you could be mistaken whether actually there's something mixed up in there until you actually grab the pitcher and look at it. And that makes such, at least to me, a big difference like in cleanliness. When we have our runoff comes out of the bottom of our pots, we don't have a ton of white buildup that you see. You still see the media, or like our tables are still clean when we're having all of our runoff throughout our entire cycle.
And
But
so you're using can all the way through veg and flour.
yeah, I mean, I use a couple of different inputs. Silicium from 5-8 from
Yeah,
Joanne.
yeah.
Um, uh, what else we use? We use Winter Frost. We use Recharge. We use Cali Magic. So it's not the complete can of line, but for the base and we use the base and the boost and the Rizzo.
Nice, nice. And so now, you guys have a team of people that come in and do a lot of defoliating at certain times for you during flower.
Yeah, so we're only a 2-room operation in flowers. So that means, sorry, there's a train going on behind me. I don't know if it picked up a little bit. We have 2 rooms, and so 2 rooms kind of puts us on a perpetual cycle of roughly every 32 to 33 days. We're doing the same thing we did the last 32 to 33 days. So January or December 15th was our first harvest. So January 17th is our next harvest. So, and it'll be continuing on like that. So when we have that type of workflow, what we'll have is like twice a month we'll have weeks where we like don't have much to do, at least when everything's like dialed in and everything's going right and the building's not leaking everywhere. We have we get on these cycles where we can take like a lot of half days, or we can just go and make sure the plants are watered, the canopy's trained, and then we can get out for the rest of the day. So we don't need a ton of employees for that type of work. So we are operating 160 lights basically on 3.5 guys. So it's me, 2 full-time guys, and then a part-time guy. And shout out to the team. So the 3.5 of us basically do everything on our day-to-day operation. When it comes to doing what people will call a defoil, I call it a final prune, like our big final prune, which starts on day 19. We'll bring a crew of 4 girls in with us, and they'll help us knock out like 3 or 4 tables. We have 7 tables in a room, so we'll knock out 3 or 4 tables, and then for the rest of the week, just the 3.5 of us will get the rest of the tables done. So like we'll bring a crew in for harvest, right? We brought in 15 people for harvest. So we can pull down 390 or 399 plants. That's our count. 57 times 7, 399. We'll bring in 15 people so we can pull all that down in an 8-hour shift. We're not there longer than we have to be. I don't want to work every single second of every day. That's just not who I am. And I want to be efficient and I want to be effective with my time. And to do that, sometimes you just have to, again, extrapolate out your labor hours and then figure out how many employees you need, and then divide everything together and add it up and divide it again by 2, and your times it by 2, and everybody's on the same page.
Wow. So it is a lot of coordinating constantly, I imagine.
Yeah.
And so now you guys are part of the metric system, is correct?
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that lovely set of circumstances.
Metric is just a database. So you can kind of just look at it as a database that builds means and averages over the course of time. And then also is the tracking system of how you stay within compliance. Metric, So you have to think like Metric has everybody's numbers, right? Like everybody that puts a number into Metric, they have everybody from any state that they have. So they get to build these massive databases and like have these extreme sample sizes that they can figure out what the means and averages truly are, and then find the people that are veering from those means and then audit them and go after them. And that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit more of right now is Michigan put a new head of the cannabis division, and he's like a retired cop or something like that, and he's been like cracking down. And one of the things they do is they'll go into Metric and they'll see the database because they have 1,000 grows, let's say. I don't exactly know what the number is, it might be more than that by now. And then they have all the data that they have from every single harvest of every single plant. So they know what the average wet weight loss is, and they know what the average this is and what the average that is. And then they can take that data and find out, why is this dude 2% off? Like, it just doesn't make sense. He's consistently 2% off. Or maybe that one harvest was 4% off. Like, what is that? And then all of a sudden we find out that these Cali packs just got busted, right? Or like something else happened where maybe more got added into the system. So, or some got taken out. I mean, it happens both ways. Don't get me wrong. So Metric is just, it's the means to stay within compliance, but it's also a way for the state and for Metric to build data that they can use almost against us.
And so then you're tagging every single plant and you're weighing anything that falls off and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep, every plant has a tag. Every leaf that strip is supposed to be weighed. Every stick that's thrown out is supposed to be weighed. Everything's supposed to be locked up afterwards. Like, yeah, they're pretty. I mean, you need to stay within compliance and transparent. And if you're transparent with them, they typically leave you alone. They go after the guys that aren't transparent with them and that are kind of throwing up blockers to them. And
so now, with you guys having a caregiver system still in the medical system, are caregiver systems and medical systems allowed to bring product to the dispensary?
So the only thing that caregivers are allowed to do that are tied in with the state grows now are bring and basically buy or sell genetics. Like, you can sell genetics to the grows or sell cuts, or like if somebody can grow a mom that can produce 1,000 cuts, they could metaphorically sell a grow 1,000 cuts.
Okay.
Hypothetically.
But they're not allowed to bring in flower tested to the
not anymore. No, it was something that was in place back in like 2018-19, but that's just because supply and demand was so out of control. Like, there was no supply and the demand was like through the roof because it just became legal and everybody wanted some. So they allowed caregivers to sell to grows or to sell to dispensaries, but as long as it passed testing, that they could put it on their shelves. But they cut that out like mid 2020.
Wow.
So let's talk a bit about what it's like right now in the Michigan market. We were going to talk about strains and stuff like that, but I'd also would love to just hear what it's like. I actually just saw, I think it was like an article in Politico or something else that was talking about the Michigan market in particular, about it sounds like many states, there's just a lot of weed going around in Michigan right now, and it's a struggle in some cases. So yeah, I would love to hear from you. What's it like right now in Michigan as a cannabis industry or business?
So it's definitely a weird time. I think just the cannabis community in general has hit its peak. And that's why we're seeing like a lot of fall off in grow stores, and like all the grow stores starting to close, and some of them are reducing hours or starting to sell other things than just grow supplies. I think that the reason for that is like we've almost hit this plateau of growers. And then along with that, we saw this massive fall off in price per pound. I mean, end of 2020, there was the price we could still get. It was even 2021. Let's see, I'm trying to think. It's been a while. And end of 2020, it was still like we could get 3,500 a pound. Is on the state side, probably even on the caregiver side. Yet it still had a lot of guys from out of state still coming up. Then Oklahoma did what they did and opened everything up and allowed people just to mass produce. And that pushed a lot of the out of state guys that used to come here to different avenues to find things for cheaper. So we're seeing the out of state caregiver market kind of affected a little bit more on that side. The legal market is also flooded now because we have so many different grows that are on the online and operational. And the state is very underwhelmed on trying to police everything, so things can still slip through the cracks and come into the system, or again move out of the system. But it's tough time, and it's a tough time to start a new business, to be honest with you. So for us starting this when we are, it's not advantageous to do so. But as Warren Buffett also said, be fearful when others, or be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. So we're kind of in this kind of in between point where we are hoping that the fear is taking over so we can kind of capitalize on what is happening. And what we are kind of seeing a little bit on the state side is a little bit of a rebound to the quality grower. They're seeing like we're seeing a little bit better price per pound to the quality products. You can still bulk at, you know, I've heard up to 15 to 1600 for quality products. I mean, you'll see it as low as 200 a pound. I mean, you'll see it's as low as some really bottom dollar, but high quality can still bulk out pretty decently if you have the right connections. But pre-packs are really where the industry has gone, at least for my type of grow and the type of market and grower that we kind of pride ourselves to be, being like this small batch craft type farmer. We can still see pre-packs. You can see those going for between 2,000 and 3,200 a pound still. So you can still get a good price on that, especially if you have a really good brand built and you actually have really good product and you have very good business skills, because there's a lot of different businessmen on the provisioning center side that want to get the best price that they can too. So
Right.
It's definitely, I would say the craft side has seen a little bit of a rebound, but the market is just completely flooded still. Like it's still just overwhelming, and you're still seeing guys are starting to see guys finally start to drop out because they just can't afford it anymore. They saw 3,200 pounds, they can only get 800, or they hired a grower that came out of a basement that didn't know what the hell they were doing and can't run an operation like they thought they could. So you're seeing like a lot of different failures happen, and a lot of these different businessmen that came from other industries tried to apply what was in their industry to this, and some of it worked, but not all of it can apply.
Right.
So
Yeah.
It's just a strange time. I think 2 to 3 years from now we'll really see this evolution and this curve kind of stabilize, but we're still just in this kind of weird time of kind of like the seismographs kind of going like this still. You know, we're seeing these ups and downs and these massive swings, but it will eventually start finding a baseline.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we went through here in Oregon as well. You know, it's kind of like quality will still do well, but there is tonnage of booth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tonnage.
Yeah, absolutely. And like outdoor, like tonnage, like,
Right.
but you know, again, there's different circles in this industry that require, you know, that type of production. That's just not the circle that I'm involved with. The circle that I'm involved with is more craft, more, like I said, small batch, more care about quality and flavor.
So when you started Waverly, you know, since this is a new company, and you just mentioned earlier the importance of building a brand when you're building a company, and could you break down a little bit about what that means? I imagine there's many parts to that. It's like the flower itself has to be good. You can say your craft, but then it actually has to be, you know, of a certain quality. And then I imagine there's a particular amount of attention and care that goes into the jars and the design and all this sort of stuff. Could you talk a little bit about that? About what does it mean? Like, yeah, you got to build a brand, but what does that actually mean?
So fortunately, I'm extremely hyper focused on the garden at this point, and I don't have to get into the marketing side too much. Where we have I have partners that are they have foresight enough to understand where my strengths are and to allow me to apply my strengths where they need to be applied. Marketing is not one of those strengths. Yeah, we came up with Affluence Farms at first, but apparently there's like two nouns or two verbs or something like that. And like the marketing companies don't like that, so that's why we switched over to Waverly. So we are Waverly now. Uh, that's the type of stuff where I'm just like, it's like a little over my head, you know.
Right.
So as far as packaging and that type of stuff, you know, I definitely always have a vision. We all, I think as a group, between the partners and I have had this vision of this high quality brand, and that's kind of where Waverly kind of comes from. You know, it's like in reference to the nice shopping street in New York, you know. So it's in reference to high quality luxury. And actually, I'm looking at some sample jars that I picked up at BizCon. We've been kind of like trying to find like stuff that's more appealing to certain types of customers, and is like, it is what it is. There's 6 billion people on this earth, and we're like just such a small niche of what the cannabis community is and what the cannabis market is.
Yeah.
Most people are still like enamored by Facebook and flashy things and nice things and hype trains, and so you kind of have to still play to that. And that's where I when they ask me, you know, what do you envision for like logo or for like strain packaging, I said just nothing cartoon. Like the cartoon thing for me is like just so played out, and all the like
Yeah, I
Mylar
agree.
bags and the runts, and like, you know, we can get into what Michigan's heavy into, and just that runt scene is like, it's all hype stuff for me anyways. And like for me, like I'm more of I like the higher end tequila. You know, like I like the nicer things. I like the finer things, right? I like
Right.
to go spend the extra dollar and like make sure that what I work hard for my money, right? So I'm always constantly wanting to spend my money the way that makes me happy. And like if it's spending a little bit more to get the one in the nice glass jar, then that might be just a little more appealing. And like that side of marketing, like people still are on Facebook staring at Facebook all day, and that's like the majority of the world. Like we can't kind of change what McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Walmart and everybody else is already ingrained in our head, or like Louis Vuitton and like Dolce
Right.
and Gabbana, right? Like we can't get away from what those have already kind of ingrained in the subconscious of everybody already.
So one last question that I wanted to throw at you real quick. Was so you build a grow, then how do you get your weed out to the store? Did you guys already have like distribution deals or relationships, I should say, from like past, you know,
So
situations? Yeah.
yeah, fortunately, I've been in the Michigan scene for a while, so I have a lot of different connections in different places that can be utilized. However, in this scenario, they don't necessarily need to be, because we do also have other salespeople that are good at their jobs and have the types of connections that need to move a small batch type of supply. You know, it's
Cool.
not like, again, we're not coming down with 1,000 pounds. We're coming down with 100. You know,
Yeah, so
and
you
it's going
guys
to be
built a team of people that know how to sell that stuff.
distribute that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And when we're coming down with the harvest, we're coming down with 7 different strains over a course of 100 pounds. So we're looking at like 15 to 20 pounds per strain. We're not looking at like this massive number of pounds or pounds of one strain that we have to get rid of.
And
You
how
know,
often
and
are
then
you guys doing those drops?
monthly,
Monthly?
roughly monthly. And then eventually we're gonna get to the point too where we're fresh freezing half of our crop. And then we get into the processing side, right? And we start fresh freezing half the crop. Now we're down to 5 to 10 pounds per product. And that's how you can control the price, is by controlling your own supply and demand. You build your hype up and your demand up on your own side,
Yeah.
but you control the supply going to the market. And that's how you're able to still survive in a market like this.
Nice.
I think there's a lot of like small batch breweries that kind of do those things too, where they do limited drops.
Mhm.
There's a lot of hype around that particular flavor. People get excited and they come and spend money.
Yeah, and that's where like putting a proper team around me is always important, because I like to get in my own way, like a one track mind, and I'll stick to one strain for a really long time. Where like in this type of market, you can't do that. Like you have to
Well,
consistently be changing and
yeah,
evolving and finding the new hype strain before it even hits. And if you
Right.
yeah.
can do that, then boom, you hit. Right.
So yeah, let's talk about strains then. What are
Yeah.
you guys growing? You just mentioned how many, like 7 in a harvest or a release?
Yeah, so this first harvest is going to be 6. So we have Cake Crasher, Grape Cream Cake, Caramel Apple Crisp, Strawberry Guava, Accelerant, and GMO. I think that's all of them.
So
Yes.
do you try to cover the range of fruity to gas to dessert, or do you just kind
So
of like
this crop was what moms I had available to me that were large enough to fill the warehouse.
yeah,
So
right?
that's like the first like 4 runs. Now that we actually have a good mom stock, this is actually, so that was the first 3 runs. The fourth run, no, I was right. The first 4 runs. So the fifth run is actually gonna be the first run that we do that I can actually select what I want in each room based on variety. So when I pheno hunting and finding strains that work within my system, the strain itself needs to work within my system. Like if I'm going to be, I'm going to be tailoring, or I'm going to want plants that can tailor to me as well as me tailor to them. So they have to be able to grow proper within my tables and within my system, but they also have to be able to uptake nutrients and provide the same type of recipe, or be provided the same type of recipe that I can give everything else in the room. So I don't have to spend an extra hour just giving this one its own particular thing, right? So I'm very selective in my pheno process in that, as that in particular. And then when it's going to come to like actually start filling rooms, for me it's like what grows well together. What might eat the fastest, like what needs to be watered twice a day. Let's put all of those in one room, or what needs to get watered every other day and put those in all one room, or what fills the canopy the best, or what color arrangement can we get by the time we hit fade that's going to look really cool, right? Like our first crop, we put a nice yellow strip right down the middle with a lot of purple around it, so we were able to like manipulate kind of and get an idea of how the canopy could look towards the end. So there's a lot of different like kind of variables that go into it, but there's a lot of other data points that I use behind the scenes that also help me make those selections based on how well they pass testing or how much they yield. So like if I'm trying to hit a certain percentage in a room, there might be a strain I want to use that is maybe an under yielder, but I can make that up by using a different strain that can still allow me to hit the weights in the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Like if this table
totally.
is only producing 10 pounds, but I can get this table to produce 20, but
Yeah,
this flower is like, the 10-pound flower is like, whoa, like I can't not
yeah,
grow this. Then at
right.
least I have the other strain in the room that can make up the difference. So that way we can keep our revenue and keep our cash flow the same.
And
Because you
I've
got to think, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, Jared, but like, yeah, when you're running a commercial grow, there's so many other things, like I said earlier, so many other hats and things that go into it,
Yeah.
because you still want to race to the bottom, but you still want to maintain quality. You still want to maintain all these certain baselines, so you can at least for me, still bring that A game to the market, but doing it for the cheapest price as possible.
Yeah, and that's I think kind of the hard part is balancing that. And I noticed that like they don't like a lot before, it would be like you said, you could rock a certain variety for a few, months or a year or so, and that was fine. But now people have gotten used to that kind of dispensary 31 flavors
Yeah.
type of model. It doesn't seem like there's the ones
Well,
as
so
much anymore.
like I said, I'm running GMO in my first crop, and GMO is one of those crops that are plants that have been around for a long time and has definitely probably got worn out on a lot of people. That's not something that I'll run every strain or every cycle. I might run it 3 times a year. I might run it a couple times a year. It's not something that, for instance, Accelerant's a strain that was a tester from Bloom Seeds and Harry Palms, and it's something that nobody else had, right? And I only the guys that also got that tester have that, unless he released it, because I don't know, because they don't ever tell you what genetics he actually have. But this plant like produces awesome garlic or like GMO funk, and like I know personally because I pop these seeds that nobody else has this strain. I have that strain coming up the first five harvests. Like I'm just pumping that one out because first of all, for me, it's my favorite. Like so that makes it easy on me.
Right.
But second of all, it hits all the numbers that we need to hit.
Yeah. Yeah, GMO, it just seems like people love it. I one of the things I just thought of is I saw, I think it was Headset, one of the companies that does like data tracking in the industry. They released a list of top strains across the industry in terms of sales, and Blue Dream was still one of the at the top. You know,
Okay.
it wasn't number one, but it was in the top like 5, I think. And
That's old
Blueberry
data.
was up there, and some others. But yeah, it was interesting to see that there's still some of those classics that still sell super well.
Yeah, it's there's some nostalgia to some of it. Like I would still love to probably do Gorilla Glue again in the future, or GG4 or whatever again
Yeah,
in the future, because that thing, like, it was a bread and butter for a long time. I'd like to see what I could do with it now versus what I could do with it back then. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I think some of that older stuff's going to come back around. I know some of the breeders are starting to bring some of the older stuff into some of the newer stuff to try to bring some of the older stuff back around.
that's
yeah, but
cool.
like to me, the true oldest stuff, like the stuff like the Skunk VA, the Roadkill Skunks, and the Duke Diamond stuff, like from like the real old, like real skunky stuff.
Yeah.
I I wish that they could be brought back somehow or found somehow. I'm on this like everlasting, I'm on a very
Never
long
ending.
journey, never
Yeah,
ending, thank you, journey to find like a roadkill skunks. I think I had it at one point because it just lingered in my car for 4 days after like I had like an
Yeah.
eighth. Like I literally had like an eighth. Like it wasn't even that bad. My buddy comes in my car 4 days later. He goes, "Why do your car
Yeah.
still smell so bad?" I'm like, "Dude, that's the
Yeah.
same weed. Like
Yeah.
I haven't had anything else in my car since then."
Right.
So I'm like
Yeah,
on
no,
this
I know.
ever ending journey of trying to find something like that again. But the stuff, let's say in the or the past the aux, the tens plus, right, 2010 on, yeah, that type of stuff we could definitely come back.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So now that you are having this facility, you're learning to manage people as well. Uh, and can you talk about maybe some of the positions that you hire for, and maybe some of the starting wages for some of those positions?
Yeah, sure. So I've been managing people for a long time, actually. This is just like now I'm doing it in the cannabis industry. Um, it's always important, like, to start off with knowing that like your team is everything. Like if without your team, you can't like do anything else. Like I can't be hands off in the garden without a team that knows exactly what to do the way that I like and the way that I know how to do it. And it can bring challenges in, right? Because you want to give other growers opportunities too, but other growers can also try to bring their own style, their own way of doing things in, and that doesn't always compute. So it's like communication is such a large thing that and something that's needed from top down, so that way like everybody is on the same page and everybody understands what's going on. In entry level position, like for us, uh, I could take anybody that has been in the cannabis industry or anybody that hasn't and probably get the same results out of them because of the way that I like to train people and the way that I like to um, kind of teach them my ways. But it's important that, or it's always been important to me that I take my team with me to the top. It's not just me that gets there. I can't do it by myself. It's the people around me that allow me to get there, and putting those people around me that give me ideas and stimulate me in other ways that I wouldn't necessarily be stimulated in before, is extremely important too. And that starts at the entry level guy, the entry level guy who's making between 15 and 18 bucks an hour, and they're grinding out your day-to-day work, but they're seeing plants on a day-to-day basis just like you are. They can maybe point something out, or maybe they have an idea of how to improve a process and be able to hear him out and listen um, uh, and possibly incorporate what they can bring to the table. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
I
so
kind of veered off. I felt
like so if you have like a lead grower, what is one of your lead grower? I know you kind of are working that out privately, but I mean, in your industry, in your
yeah. So
situation,
in my situation, we don't. I have a number two, but I wouldn't like Brian. Please don't take offense to this because I know you're probably gonna watch this. Brian is my number two. He's my right hand, and like I'm extremely grateful for him. Most guys that are in that position that are in facilities that are larger than three person crews are probably making 50 to 60 grand a year. Um, in other situations, obviously in smaller situations where I'm so hands-on like I am, especially to start, I kind of take on that role along with the owner, along with a lot of different roles. I
Yeah.
mean, again, Brian, you do great work. I appreciate you. I couldn't be where I am without some of the shit that he's been in and helped me through. I can't go to BizCon. I can't do Vegas without,
Right.
guys like that's help. So I'm totally not trying to take anything away from him and the rest of my crew. But that said, I kind of encompass all those roles right now. And it's important. Sorry, this was where I was trying to go with that last kind of long-winded statement. It's important to me that my employees know that they can't have my job, right? Like, I'm a partner in this company. I have equity stake in this company. I can't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere unless I fuck myself over. So they can't have my job necessarily, but what I can do and provide to them is as much knowledge as I have in me, and get them trained to the point where that they can go out and get their own opportunity just like I have. And that's
Right.
what I try to instill with every single crew member that comes in. And I try to train every single guy the same way, so that way they know that they can go on to the next job and excel. Or if we maybe expand in the future or get bigger or something, they can take on another role that would expand their capacity where they're at with me now.
And so a lot of companies and a lot of facilities are looking for eventually maybe the big buyout. Is that something down the road that you guys are looking forward to, or you just kind of want to stay in your lane?
Um, at the end of the day, I don't have enough equity to control what happens in that lane. All I can control is what I can control. And if that is an avenue that the group decides to take, then I'm along for the ride, because I've now set up 3 different grows from the ground. Well, the second one wasn't necessarily ground up. I kind of jumped in halfway through the project, but now this being my third one and actually going through the entirety of the process, I can go out there and do this 12 more times. Like, I have the confidence that I can do this over and over again, because I know exactly what I want, how I need it. And now I have the numbers to back it up. And I've done it multiple times in different locations that I can back it up to. So, if somebody wants to come around and buy us and we just want to go turn around and do it all over again, sweet, let's do it. I have other aspirations throughout my life than just being a 100% grower, until I'm 70. But I definitely have a solid 15, 20 years left in me.
Yeah, you do, buddy. Yeah, you do. I just turned 53 and I hope I got at least another 10 in me.
That's what I'm saying. Well, I'll never stop growing. I have dreams of other areas of the business that I'd like to be in, but the country hasn't even evolved to the point to allow it yet. So
yeah,
that's totally. Where, like, I'll spend the time doing what I'm doing now until we get to the point where there can be coffee shops in every corner.
Yeah, I feel like the last couple of years have been a little bit of a wake up call, in the sense that I feel like we all thought that things were going to move a lot faster than maybe they have. You know what I mean? Like, I think we've seen that probably something on the national level is still probably a ways away. And so there's still a lot of shit that needs to be worked out across every single state in the whole country and everything.
Yeah, I think I don't want to go on a political soapbox, but I think it's important to realize that there's so many people affected within this industry that politically it would be a political disaster for somebody to come in and mess this all up. So we're going to continue to evolve and keep moving forward with what we're doing in the community. It's just time catching up. And then we're going to see this massive societal shifts, at least over the next 10 years or so.
Yeah.
With, supply chain issues, with labor shortages, with so many different things that are going to play an effect in everybody's lives, but it's going to play an effect in the cannabis lives too. And as an entity and as a part of the community, to be out in front of that and be prepared for that as best as possible is really the only thing that we can do.
Well, that's kind of one of the hard questions that we ask people. It's a declining price and product. It's over taxation without representation. And then it's, usually predatory lending. So what, out of those 3 things, what are you doing to kind of prevent all that from sweeping you out from under your feet?
Having the partners that can do part of those things and not have to rely on anybody else. But me personally, gaining as much intellectual capital as I can that can carry me forward and be able to do this in, like, again, like I could set up another one, I could branch out and help people, I could do a lot of different things now. But experience is everything. Like I know 250 harvests is not a lot, not a big number to a lot of the people out there. Like that's nothing to a lot of people. But for some people, that's like, holy shit, I can't even do that in my lifetime. So trial and error and figuring it out and then creating a system and then being able to replicate that system is like everything. And that's where scalability comes in too. And so for me to answer that question, I just have to stay as far ahead of my game as possible. I can't ever think that I'm at the top of my game or that's when I'll be passed, right? So and I'll be honest, like I post on Instagram, but I'm never on Instagram. Like I'm never looking at other people's stuff or doing, because I'm so hyper focused on my own thing and what I have going on, that's going to allow me later on in life to be able to avoid those obstacles that might pop up.
Nice. Excellent.
Yes.
We've really answered a lot of really good questions that a lot of people maybe wouldn't have been willing to answer. So I super appreciate it, Matt. I really do.
Think we could do this for another 3 or 4 hours and we could really get into some things, but
yeah, I know. I know. I really could.
You know, I'm 37 years old now, and the analogy that I keep making in life is at like 30, I stopped eating hot wings. And I know, like, Brad, dude, you know, he likes his hot foods and stuff. Like some people like their hot things, and that's not me. That's not what I do, right? I'm not about to eat a hot wing to torture myself for the next 3 days. Like it's just not worth it for me. So I decided that at some point I'm going to do the things that I enjoy and the things that I like, and I'm going to start being honest with myself and open with myself. And the more that I can do that, the better off that I'm going to be, because I don't have to fall into hype trains. I don't have to fall into propaganda or any of the other shit. I can stay within my lane, and I can handle what I can handle within my walls, and realize that everything else, again, like we said at the beginning of the interview, everything else is out of my hands. Right. I can only control what's underneath my roof, and whether that roof's the business roof or the house roof or whatever roof that is. Everything else is out of my control.
Sure seems that way.
No doubt.
No doubt. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for joining us tonight. It's been a blast. I know people in the chat enjoyed it. Crazy Pot Mom said that you've covered a lot and it's been great. And then Nay said that you've been dropping facts. Yeah, shout out to all of our Cannabuzz members. Again, you can join our Cannabuzz community, download the app or go to our website at cannabuzz.app and use the code New Year for 50% off your membership. You can even do monthly at $4.20 a month, and there's a 3-day free trial on that even. So come on in and join the community. We'd love to have you. And also shout out to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cannabuzz, which is where you're going to be able to watch this interview, as well as a bunch of past interviews. One of the ones that I was thinking of, Matt, when you were talking, was our interview with Scotty from the Dude Grows Show and Real Growers. And Scotty kept saying over and over about the importance of building a great team. And so you made me think of that when you were talking about that a lot too. So make sure to check out all those great episodes. But Matt, let me throw it over to you. Actually, give us all your shout outs. Where can people learn more about what you're up to, Waverly's up to, and anything else that you want to shout out?
So I might not be on Instagram much, but I still do posts on Instagram. I'm Michigan_Matt. We are Waverly Weed Co. That's basically the only place you're going to find us right now. We will be, let's see, today is the 28th of December. So we'll be through testing hopefully by early next week, and hopefully you'll be able to find Waverly on the shelves at some local dispensaries. But stay tuned to both pages to find out where those dispensaries are.
Excellent. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome, Matt.
appreciate
We'll
you
have to have
guys.
you on again sometime. I would love. We didn't even get to talk about Ohio. I was just in Ohio, and everyone basically told me if you want good weed, you need to drive to Michigan. Is what people told me. Um, so
Well, I'll
yeah,
tell you what, people in Michigan will not tell you to go to Ohio to get good weed.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, we'll have to catch up with you again, maybe sometime in the spring or towards the summer or something like
I'd be
that. We'll
happy
catch up
to.
with you again, man. We had a blast tonight. Thanks everyone who's watching live. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great new year. Holy shit, it's gonna be 2023 in just a couple days. So shout out to
Yeah.
everyone who's listening, and we'll see you again soon. And thanks for watching tonight.
Happy New Year's and growers love.
Thank you.